welcome to Bridges. I'm Ryan Rinborg, and I'm filling in for Monica today. We have a very special couple of guests today, and that is the musical duo Out of the Dust. And they also happen to be a husband and wife with an incredible journey behind them. And so we're going to talk with them today about everything that has to do with their story and their music. So Chris and Stephanie, welcome. And thank you guys so much for being on Bridges.
Sure, thanks for having us.
Glad to be here.
So it's... how does it tie in doing music together and being a married couple? How does that all work out?
Almost more like how does it not tie in? It's such a big part of our lives. I think even just from the fun enjoyment side of music, we met because 16-year-old self saw this cute boy playing guitar, on mission trip training. It starts even from when we met. We've always loved music and have grown, we feel like the chapters in our lives are almost punctuated by different albums and things that we've listened to. But, and then we began leading worship together. And from there, throughout our story, which we'll get into, it eventually became Out of the Dust.
Yeah.
As musicians too, we're like wildly different, like yin and yang. And it worked perfectly. You would think we would butt heads all the time, and we don't. We're not perfect, but the workflow in the household works really, really well with our strengths. So,
now, so you guys met at a very early age. Mm-hmm. You said. Mm-hmm. At what point in your life did you get married? How old were you?
Yeah, we met at 16 and 17, and we're married at 19 and 20. So very young, in the middle of college.
Was it challenging being married so young?
We didn't think so at the time, but I think it was because we were just clueless. I always heard about the first year of marriage being the hardest, and I don't think we really had completely formed who we were yet. We were still in college, and so it wasn't that hard because we were so busy, and we just were kind of, I guess we were sort of blind to a lot of our own selfishness. So we just sort of flew by, but the challenges definitely reared their head later, even after just a couple of years.
So when that started to come up, what things transpired then?
Well, yeah. So in college, I was in the music industry, and I wanted to be in the music industry. So it's a breeding ground for very wholesome activity. And
right.
Sarcasm, but I love the music industry. But it was at a time in my life where also faith-wise, I was sort of in flux. I'm just going through the boy becoming a man and figuring out what I am, who I am, what I believe, and it was sort of a perfect storm where I wasn't telling anybody this, I wasn't sharing anything, but I was deep into, I guess, what you would call scientism, not just science. Science is amazing, but, in this sort of atheist I was in that stream of thinking and sort of surrounding myself with that. And again, not sharing anything with anybody, but that eroded my faith very quietly, I think. I had a lot of questions that I felt were unanswered. But then the music industry side of it, and I don't want to blame all of it on that, but in college there's things that you can do extracurricularly that aren't always pleasing to the Lord. So those sort of behaviors were happening as well, and just some drug use and things like that also drove this wedge, and it was also a secret. So our marriage, I wouldn't say it was a sham, but I wasn't who anyone thought that I was. And as a person who craves authenticity, I was a mess because I wasn't real with anybody. So that really did a number on our marriage.
So at the time that this was first beginning to happen, were you aware that this was going on?
I was not. At one point, I knew that he was having some faith struggles, but I thought, like we both grew up in the church. I think it's something that everybody has to wrestle with at some point to make your faith your own, because it's been told to you your whole life. So you need to know that it's your own. And so I thought that's a normal thing. And I saw him reading some great literature about it. So I thought, oh, well, he's seeking out some answers and everything's fine. I didn't ask the questions
Right.
at that point. And so I knew nothing about drugs. I knew, I could tell, I could sense kind of a shift in his thinking a little bit. But I think I felt it was almost a self-protection thing, as to not ask and just assume things are okay. And I tend to assume the best. I assume things are fine, but there's definitely some issues with that when you don't, with your husband, when you don't try to find out what's going on. So I was totally unaware.
So I just sat her down one night in 2010 and said, I don't believe in God anymore, and I don't want to be married anymore. And that was basically the first that she'd, for the most part, that was the first that she'd heard about it, which is kind of earth-shattering. And that started us both on journeys of our own that the Lord took us on to shape who we are today and why we can be here and tell this story openly and share it through music. All of that is by the journeys that we took after, the divorce papers were filed and we were apart. We were completely, our marriage was done.
Right.
God restored it.
So, and you guys did walk through that whole path of divorce and then reconciling after having been divorced. Tell us a little bit about the details there.
Yeah, so the quick version of that is, I left sort of blazing a trail off into the wild, selfish unknown. I hated leaving everybody because I'm a people pleaser and I didn't want to hurt anybody.
Right.
And I'd seen other friends of ours go through some messy some messy breakups and split ups. So I tried to do things a little differently, but it was completely life-shattering to Stephanie and everybody around us. But I left thinking that it was just going to be peaches and, that everything was going to be great. And it was for a little bit. I left in freedom, I thought, to go and be who I wanted to be and do what I wanted to do. And that very, very quickly, in a much longer tale of events, led me to a place of just utter brokenness and desperation. So, you pinpoint it back to when that was, and it was all the apex of my selfishness and leaving and doing what I wanted to do and just being brazen with my own choices. It's a bit of a cliche story, but I really did just go flying off the cliff,
Right.
And that's where God found me, is at the bottom of the ravine,
And so during this time, what was it like for you, Stephanie, when he was going kind of his own direction to try and find this freedom that he was looking for? What were you going through?
Oh man, everything. Like you said, when you sat me down that night, I knew nothing was coming. So for me, my entire life was ripped out from under me, and I am a planner, and I had what I thought, the next 5 years would look like, and 10 years, and kids, and, thought that was all just laid out and ready to go. And so to have that happen just turned my world upside down. And through that, I could tell so quickly how much I found security in my own control and my own schedules and ideas of what my life should look like. As much as I said, Lord, my life is yours, I really hadn't fully let go of the reins. And so God took me on my own unique journey that year as he was going off the deep end. It was a time with the Lord that I wouldn't trade for anything. Sure. And, that's... He promises us in his word that he'll find us there in those places. And so, every emotion, the anger, the embarrassment, all the things that come with a loss, like a divorce, God revealed to me the pride and the selfishness and the rebellion, that it may not look like his, whereas his rebellion was very outward and everybody could see it, but mine was such a heart thing. And so that year, God so graciously showed me some of the things that I had going on in my own heart that I contributed to our marriage. And so it was really painfully beautiful time for me throughout that year.
Even now, as you tell that, it just reminds me, I was stuck on intellectual arguments and stuck on I didn't want God, I think. I kind of explained him away to to get to this point of freedom, and a lot of it was intellectual, but God found me through my heart, just like with Stephanie. You know, we have outward rebellion and inward rebellion, and I thought I had explained everything to myself in my head, and that, you know, God's word tells us a fool says in his heart there is no God. And God revealed that to me and letting me see, you know, where things end up when I'm in control.
Well, we're going to hold right here in the story. We got to take a quick break, and we'll be right back after this to kind of see where things ended up for Chris and Stephanie and how Out of the Dust came out of that.
You can purchase a copy of today's show for $15. Call us at 615-754-0039 or send a check to the address on the screen. Please mention the program number on the screen.
For more information on a guest, visit our website, ctntv.org.
We've been talking with Chris and Stephanie Teague about their marriage, and moving into, we're going to talk about how that journey has really produced the musical project that they do, which is called Out of the Dust. And so we're going to return to their story. They had just gone through a period in their life where they were divorced and had moved apart after being married at a very early age. And so picking up there, you guys, you were both in a place of just kind of wrestling with God, it sounds like. And so how did you get from there to reconciliation? So
when God really sort of blew open the doors of my life and my heart, I was, like I said, I was very desperate. And I feel like I realized the mistake that I'd made, and God allowed me to see the selfishness. Even though I felt like nobody wanted me, or in my own head I justified, you know, who would want a guy that's not a believer and a girl that's a believer, you know, that doesn't work. So I justified that, but as God sort of reintroduced himself to me, I felt him telling me more clearly than anything I've ever heard from the Lord that he wanted us to be back together. Stephanie needed a little more.
I didn't have that message immediately.
Needed a little more convincing.
Yeah, we hadn't talked for months, and this was fall of 2010, so same year as the divorce. He kind of felt like out of the blue to me. He met with my parents, which was an interesting choice. Talked to them first, and then my mom called and said, hey, he wants to talk to you if you're up for it. And so we ended up talking for, 2 hours maybe, just walking the neighborhood, and came down to that whole, I think that God wants us to be together again. And I thought, okay, hold on.
Sure.
Let's work through this, because obviously trust needed to be rebuilt, and I needed to know that, this man that I saw and that I heard in that conversation that night was somebody that I saw Jesus in more clearly than I had ever seen, and even before when we got married, and so I needed to know that it was a true heart change and not I'm going to try to pull these pieces back together because I'm miserable kind of thing. So we spent several months apart, did some counseling together, kind of got the go-ahead from the people in our lives and our church, and that, if it's something we want to pursue, we know that it's God's heart. Reconciliation at any, if at all possible, is God's desire for us. So we ended up getting engaged in January of the following year, and we married in February.
Just under a year.
Yeah.
Praise God. Yeah, that's amazing. So before this, I think in your story you had said that you had led worship together, but outside of that had not collaborated musically. So tell me a little bit about how you got from that point of reconciliation and your second wedding to you started making music out of this journey.
So music is something that I always wanted to do. And I was still writing songs even as we had come back together, and there was one in particular that was kind of upbeat and was kind of a narrative song. Like, I don't really tell a lot of stories when I write songs, but this one kind of had that vibe. And we just somehow, somebody said, well, what if we finished it together, and what if we kind of tag teamed it? and we tried it and we loved it, you know.
Yeah, and it's something that we felt like, okay, we've been through this experience, you know, we've seen God's redemption in our lives, and we know that in some way we need to tell the story. You know, we feel responsible with what God's brought us through, so things just kept kind of pulling us towards doing music in more than just a worship sense. And yeah, so from there we tried to write, and I think we never did it because we assumed it wouldn't work because we're opposite on every personality scale, like everything. So we're like, yeah, even our voices, we're like, I don't know, they're so different. And so it just, step
Kept
after
working.
step, it just kept working. We kept getting this confirmation from people, and you know, then we thought, hey, let's try this, and I came up with our name, Out of the Dust, which is a testament to our story and what God has brought us out of, and how He can take anything and make it into something beautiful and redeem it all. And we've all been redeemed through Jesus, so it's, you know, it's such a big part of who we are. So now it's something we love to do. We love music. It just brings us so much joy, but it's also, we see it as a platform to be able to tell the story of hope.
And now you guys have an album, self-titled album, Out of the Dust. So what went into the process of producing that whole thing?
Well, it's a bit of a long story, but we wrote the songs over the course of a couple of years, and the album is birthed, number one, from that period in our life, but also just from the everyday experiences of trying to be Christians in a world that's not perfect, you know. So there's a lot of themes of struggle and questioning, things that, you know, we don't often hear or feel comfortable sharing. We want, one of the things I love saying about songs is I want to try to write songs that are like Hallmark cards for people's hearts. You know, you walk through the cards and you read, and this one doesn't really say it quite the way you want to, but you find that card and it's like you didn't even know you felt it until you read it, and you think, that's how I feel. So we want to give a voice to the parts of people's hearts that they may not know or understand, but once they hear it, they can pinpoint it.
Well, you guys will have on the screen kind of information about where you can go to hear the music of Out of the Dust, but also we're about to go into a segment where they're going to perform for us several of the songs that they have released. And we're going to start with I'll Never Hide, that they are performing in the Bridges studio with us. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Bridges.
Join the Bridges community on Facebook. Visit Facebook and search for Bridges with Monica. We would love to connect with you.
I'll never hide my love from you. My heart will ever be in fullest bloom. When winter flowers shy from summer's view, I'll never hide my love from you.
I'll never leave, my dear, it's true. As sure as earth has her faithful moon, my breath be gone before I'm gone from you. I'll never leave, no, I promise you. Mm-hmm, 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 mm-hmm.
Oh, oh, oh. The night was dark and hopes were few.
Our hearts held captive in solitude, but our redemption skies are brightest blue. From the dust, He made us new. From the dust, He made us new.
Life is more than simply chasing after things I think I need.
It's not about me, it's not about me, it's not about me.
Every day I slave and search for what will make me be okay.
There's only one thing, there's only one thing, there's only one thing.
Lord, awaken me from sleeping, endless dreaming. You can take me, you can make me so much more. Lord, just let me be all that I am made for.
Oh, 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 oh.
All that I am made for.
Oh, 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 oh.
All that I am made for.
My eyes are finally wide. You've opened them to see my foolish pride. It was all about me, all about me, all about me. Oh, 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 I give my life away and fall upon your mercy and your grace. You're all that I need, all that I need, all that I need. Lord, awaken me from sleeping, endless dreaming. You can take me, you can make me so much more. Lord, just let me be
All that I am made for.
oh, 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 oh.
All that I am made for.
Oh, 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 oh.
All that I am made for.
Awake, O sleeper, come to life. We are the children of the light. Awake, O sleeper, come to life. We are the children of the light. Awake, O sleeper, come to life. Resist this world and shine a light. Awake, O sleeper, come to life. Resist this world and shine a light. Oh, 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 Lord, awaken me from sleeping, endless dreaming. You can take me, you can make me so much more. Lord, just let me be
All that I am made for.
oh, 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 oh.
I am made for so much.
Oh, 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 oh.
All that I am made for.
Oh, 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 oh. Every heartache, every tear, in every mistake, every fear, we will not forget what you've brought us through. Oh, 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 oh. Through every question, every doubt, you're not shaken, you surround. We will not forget what you've brought us through, yeah. Walking through fire,
You are faithful through every trial.
trial,
We are grateful.
nothing are tested, we are tried, but there's a blessing on the other side. You redeem all of our suffering. Whoa, take our story, take control, and let our lives be a sign of hope that you redeem all of our suffering.
Walking through fire, you are faithful through every trial. We are grateful.
Nothing is wasted, this is our hope. You use brokenness
To make us whole.
oh, 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 oh,
Oh, you make us whole.
oh, 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 oh.
Broken joy brings the day. Broken ground gives us grace.
Broken chains set us free. Beauty comes from broken things.
Walking through fire, through every trial. Oh, oh.
Walking through fire,
You are faithful
through every trial.
We are grateful.
Nothing is wasted, this is our hope. You use brokenness
To make us whole.
oh, 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 oh,
Oh, you make us whole.
oh, 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 oh.
Oh, you make us whole.
When I truly turned my heart to the Lord, He took every sin I ever did away from me.
God really is your other half. God, He's the only person who can really, fill those holes and cracks in your heart that you're so wanting someone to fill.
It's no good to have a big dream if you're not putting yourself in motion to go after that.
Join the Bridges community on Facebook. Visit Facebook and search for Bridges with Monica. We would love to connect with you.